You are nothing, my mother-in-law hissed right in my face, while my husband, the man I once loved more than anything, threw my clothes out of the closet. They laughed, thinking they could get away with everything. But their smiles faded when the doorbell rang. They didn't know that my father, Colonel Pavel Ignatyevich, was standing on the other side, and that this moment would change everything. I had always dreamed of a big, loving family. My mother left when I was very little, and my father, being a colonel, lived by strict rules and long trips. He loved me, I knew that. But his love came in the form of expensive birthday gifts and short phone calls from faraway army bases. So, I learned to be strong and rely only on myself. When I met Stanislav, it felt like I finally found peace. He was kind, charming, caring, and his mother, Inga Borisovna, seemed warm, almost like the mother I never had. The first year of marriage was like a dream. We lived separately, and everything was perfect. Stanislav adored me, and Inga was always nice, calling me her daughter and saying how lucky her son was. Trouble started when we moved into her large apartment. The idea was to help her after her husband died, and also save money for our future. But I had no idea I was stepping into a trap. At first, the signs were small. I put her favorite vase in the wrong place, or cooked borscht not the way she liked. So she'd just eat bread and say her stomach hurt. Stanislav would just laugh and say, "Kira, you know how Mom is. She's just like that. Don't take it seriously." So I didn't. I wanted peace. I wanted a real family so badly. I ignored the red flags. But slowly things got worse. She began criticizing my education, my job as a salon administrator, calling it serving spoiled women. She'd always say her son, a successful lawyer, deserved someone better. "Look at my friend's daughter. She married a prosecutor," she'd say. "She has her own apartment, a car. And what do you have? No name, no family, nothing to offer my son." I kept quiet and swallowed the pain. Stanislav just kept eating, pretending not to hear. That hurt more than his mother's cruel words. My kind, caring husband was gone. The man I loved was gone. In his place was someone angry, always complaining, and doing whatever his mother told him. Anytime I tried to talk, he got mad. "Kira, stop it. My mom is everything to me. She gave her whole life for me. And you want me to fight with her over your moods?" I started calling my father less and less. I was too ashamed to admit that my so-called perfect family life was falling apart. I knew my dad, he wouldn't just listen. He'd show up, take me home, and not accept any excuses. But I still loved Stanislav. I kept telling myself this was just a rough patch, that things would get better, that he'd remember how we used to be. I was so wrong. The moment everything broke for good was his mom's birthday. I prepared for it for weeks. Took a day off work, stayed in the kitchen all day, cooked all her favorite dishes, even bought her an expensive silk scarf. She had once said she liked it, and I wanted to make her happy, to prove I could be a good wife and daughter-in-law. The party ended. The guests left. We were cleaning up the table in the hallway. Inga Borisovna was in a great mood. She even praised me in front of her friends, and for a moment I felt hope. "Mom, where's that blue tea set Aunt Vera gave me?" Stanislav asked, looking into the cabinet. "Oh, that," she said with a fake smile. "Our dear Kira managed to break it. Clumsy as always." I froze. That was a lie. She had broken it herself a month ago, while trying to reach the sugar bowl. She was upset, and I had cleaned up the pieces and comforted her. "That's not true," I said quietly. "You dropped it by accident." She turned to me fast, her face twisted with rage. "What did you just say?" she hissed. "You dare call me a liar in my own house? You ungrateful parasite." Stanislav quickly moved to her side, fists clenched. "Kira, apologize to my mother. Now. How dare you raise your voice at her?" Something inside me broke. All the pain and insults I had kept inside for months suddenly came out. "I won't apologize for something I didn't do," I said. My voice shook, but I stood my ground. You lie. You humiliate me every day. And you, Stas, you hide like a coward behind her. That was it. Stanislav's face turned red. Oh, I'm a coward, he snapped. Then he raised his hand and slapped me across the face. It wasn't hard, more like a strong smack, but it felt like a punch to my soul. Not from pain, but from the betrayal. My ears rang. And Inga Borisovna? She laughed softly. A proud, satisfied laugh. She looked at me with triumph, like she had been waiting for this moment. It's about time you put her in her place, son, she said sweetly. Pack her things. This ungrateful woman doesn't belong in our house. She's nobody. She doesn't even deserve a name. Got it. Stanislav moved like a robot, as if she had given him an order. He walked to our bedroom. I heard him yank open the closet doors, and hangers hit the floor. I just stood there, in the middle of the living room, holding my cheek, which was still burning from the slap. I couldn't believe what was happening. My dream life, my fairy tale, was turning into a nightmare. The people I called family were throwing me out like trash. Then suddenly the doorbell rang. Not softly, but loud, firm, and commanding. Inga Borisovna frowned. Who could that be at this hour? She grumbled. Stanislav walked out of the bedroom with an armful of my clothes. Go open it, he told me coldly. Probably one of your drama queen friends coming to cry with you. I dragged myself to the door, looked through the peephole, and froze. My father was standing there, wearing a plain civilian suit, but still holding himself like the colonel he was. Next to him stood two serious-looking young men, hair trimmed short, wearing matching dark jackets. Their faces were calm, unreadable. I hadn't called him. There was no way he could have known. How did he even get here? My head was spinning. I slowly turned the key and opened the door. Behind me, Inga and Stanislav were still smirking, probably expecting one of my crying friends. But their smiles started to fade. As a tall, gray-haired man stepped into the apartment, his presence strong and commanding. He looked around slowly, his eyes stopping on the red mark on my cheek, then moving to Stanislav holding my clothes, and finally to Inga Borisovna, who was frozen, her smile twisted and uneasy. Silence filled the room. Then my father's voice rang out, sharp and cold like a gunshot. Good evening, he said. I suppose I came at a bad time? There was no question in his voice, just steel. Whatever smugness was left on their faces vanished. Confusion turned to fear. Dad, I whispered, as tears rolled down my cheeks. Not from pain now, but from relief. My father, Colonel Pavel Ignatyevich, was here. And I knew, from this moment on, everything would change. He walked over, gently moved me behind him, and placed himself between me and them. The way he looked at Stanislav was enough to freeze fire. Young man, my father said in a cold voice, nodding at the dresses in Stanislav's hands, would you mind putting my daughter's things back? It looks like you dropped them. Stanislav blinked, speechless. All his arrogance melted away in seconds. Stanislav looked at his mother, hoping she'd back him up. But Inga Borisovna just stood there, pale as a ghost, mouth open, eyes darting, between my father and the two men standing silently in the doorway. She finally realized that this simple girl with no family wasn't so simple after all. Her little world, where she ruled like a queen, was falling apart right in front of her. And this was only the beginning. Inga was the first to pull herself together. She tried to put on her usual arrogant face, but it didn't quite work. Her voice shook. Who are you? She asked, squeaking. This is a private family matter. Outsiders have no place here. My father didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed fixed on Stanislav. I'll say it again, he said slowly, clearly, emphasizing every word. Put my daughter's things back. One of the men in the doorway took a small step forward. Just one step, but it was enough. Stanislav flinched. His hands loosened, and my clothes dropped to the floor in a messy pile. Pavel Ignatyevich. Stanislav stammered, finally remembering my dad's name from the wedding. This is all just a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. My father turned his head and looked him straight in the eye. My daughter has a mark on her face. From a slap. And you call that a misunderstanding? Inga gasped and rushed to defend her son. Stasek didn't mean to. She provoked him, she shouted. She insulted me, his mother? She was yelling, desperate to shift the blame. My father finally turned his eyes to her, and the look he gave was colder than any words. Mother, he repeated softly but firmly. You may be his mother, but to Kira, you are no one. And listen carefully. I have never allowed anyone to hurt my daughter, and I won't start now. He took a slow step toward them. They both flinched and stepped back, hitting the wall behind them. And in that moment, I finally understood. I had spent all this time trying to become part of their family, chasing their love, begging for their approval. But my real family, my only family, had always been there, waiting, ready to help me the second I reached out. I just needed the courage to ask. My father turned to me. His face, so stern just seconds ago, now softened with warmth. Kira, daughter, get ready. We're leaving, my father said. I turned to gather my things, but he stopped me. It's okay, he said firmly. We'll buy new ones. Better ones. There's nothing truly yours here. There never was. He took my hand. His grip was strong and warm. Without another word, he led me to the door, past Stanislav and Inga Borisovna, who stood frozen in fear. At the doorway, he stopped. Without even turning around, he said calmly over his shoulder, As for the misunderstanding, young man, we'll discuss it tomorrow, in a more official setting. His words felt like a final warning, sharp, serious, and not to be ignored. I stepped out onto the landing, and one of the men quietly shut the door behind us. I took a deep breath of the night air. This was the end of my old life, and the start of something new. But one thing was clear. I was no longer alone. Justice was finally on its way. We drove through the city in silence. I looked at the glowing lights from shop windows and street lamps. They all blurred together, as if I were seeing them through water. My father sat beside me in the back seat, his face calm and firm, like a statue. One of the young men, Victor, was driving. The other, Ilya, sat in the front seat. Finally, I couldn't keep it in. Dad, how did you know? I asked, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. He just kept his eyes on the road. I knew something was wrong, he said quietly. The way you sounded, your laugh, didn't feel real anymore. But you kept saying the same thing. I'm fine, Daddy. Everything's fine. He sighed. I'm a military man, Kira. I don't trust words. I trust facts. And the facts told me something else. He paused, then added. I asked Victor, his father was an old friend of mine, to keep an eye on you, not to interfere, just to be nearby, in case. He glanced at me. Today, he called. Said there was screaming coming from your apartment. Something was wrong. I happened to be in the city for a meeting, so I got in the car and came straight to you. He said it all so simply, like he was talking about a work assignment. But for me, his words hit deep. All this time, I thought I was alone, but he had been watching over me, quietly protecting me. He didn't wait for me to ask for help. He just felt that I needed it. He'd been there all along, putting safety nets where I might fall. We stopped at a plain but nice hotel. My father had already booked a room. Rest now, he said as he walked me to the door. Morning is wiser than evening. Don't think too much tonight. But the moment he closed the door, I was left alone with my thoughts, and all the pain I had been pushing down came back full force. The wall I'd built around my dream of a perfect family didn't just crack. It turned to dust. I walked to the mirror and looked at myself. There was a red mark on my cheek from Stanislav's hand. But what hurt more than the bruise was what I saw in my eyes. There was nothing there, only emptiness. I wasn't just mourning a broken marriage. I was mourning my own blind faith, my foolish hope that if I just gave enough, if I stayed quiet, polite, obedient, they would love me back. I cried through most of the night. By morning, I finally drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep. A knock at the door woke me up. It was my father. He was holding a breakfast tray and a big cardboard box. "Good morning," he said with a smile. But I could see the dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept either. "Eat," he said, setting down the tray. "And this is for you." Inside the box was a simple but elegant dress, comfortable shoes, underwear, and everything I might need. He had thought of everything. While I ate, he laid out his plan, clear and direct, just like a military order. "At 10 o'clock, we'll go get your documents. And anything important you left behind. The visit will be short. No emotion. No drama. Do you understand, Kira?" I nodded. I had no emotions left anyway. Only cold, clear determination. At exactly 10 o'clock, we stood again at the door of the apartment that just yesterday had been my home. This time, my father rang the bell himself. Stanislav opened the door. He looked like he had aged overnight. His skin was pale, his eyes red. He flinched when he saw us. "Come in," he said stiffly. Inga Borisovna sat in the living room. She wore a formal dark suit and had put on her usual mask, sorrowful, dignified, like a grieving actress. She stood up slowly, pretending to be warm and welcoming. "Pavel Ignatyevich, Karachka, we're so glad you came. We were so worried. Stasik didn't sleep at all. He's been miserable. It's all just nerves, confusion." My father cut her off with a sharp gesture. "We're not here for apologies," he said coldly. "Kira is here to take her documents, personal items and valuables. That's all." Inga Borisovna pressed her lips together. "Of course," she said tightly. "Of course. We're not monsters. We're happy to return everything that belongs to Karachka." Stanislav said nothing. He walked into the bedroom and came back with my bag. It had my passport and work papers inside. "Here," he muttered. "Your other box is on the dresser." I followed him to the room and began packing my things. Only the items that really mattered. Photos, my mother's jewelry, books. While I packed, I could feel their eyes on me. They thought this was the end, that I'd quietly take my little things and disappear from their lives, leaving behind everything they thought belonged to them. When I came out of the bedroom with my small suitcase, Inga Borisovna let out a fake, dramatic sigh. "Well, if that's how it is," she said sweetly, "we wish you all the best, Kira. I hope you won't hold any grudges." My father, who had been quietly watching everything, took one slow step forward. "We're not done yet," he said. His voice was calm, but in the silence, it hit like a thunderclap. "We haven't discussed the financial matter." Stanislav stiffened, and Inga Borisovna raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Financial matter?" she repeated. "What are you talking about? Kira lived with us. We took care of her. What money could you possibly mean?" My father gave her a small smile. "I'm talking about the 2 million rubles. The money I gave you as a wedding gift. It was meant for you to buy a separate apartment. But clearly, the marriage didn't work out, and the apartment was never purchased. So, I'd like the money returned." Inga's face went from confused to panicked. "What 2 million? She shrieked, her calm act slipping. "We don't know anything about that. We had savings. Stasik saved up." "Really?" my father said quietly. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. He opened it slowly. "Well, here's a copy of the bank transfer, showing that exact amount was sent to your son Stanislav's account the day after the wedding. It clearly says, 'Wedding gift from bride's father.'" Stanislav's face turned ghost white. He looked down at the floor, not saying a word because he knew it was true. But his mother didn't give up. "This is fake," she screamed. "You're trying to scam us. We'll sue you for this. Stasik, say something." But Stanislav didn't move. He stayed silent, staring at the floor, ashamed and broken. For the first time, I saw him not as cruel, but as weak. A man who had lived under his mother's control all his life, and never had the courage to stand up for himself. Inga Borisovna suddenly realized Her son wouldn't help her now. Her face twisted with rage. She stormed toward me. "This is your fault," she hissed. "You planned this. You tricked us. You came in here to take the apartment. And now the money too. I've had enough." My father's voice snapped through the room like a whip. He stepped in front of me, blocking her path. "The money was transferred to your son's account," he said coldly. "And I know exactly how it was spent. Not on an apartment, but on a new car for you, Inga Borisovna, and to pay off several large debts your son owed. Debts my daughter knew nothing about." The room went completely still. Inga stared at my father, eyes wide, jaw hanging open. She couldn't understand how he knew. She thought all their dirty secrets were safely hidden. But now it was all out in the open. Stanislav sat down on the couch, covered his face with his hands, and didn't say a word. He had nothing left to defend. They were trapped, caught in their own lies and greed. I looked at them and felt nothing. No anger, no hate. Just bitter disappointment. And a little pity, especially for Stanislav. How could he lie like that? How could he betray someone who trusted him so much? "So," my father continued, his voice calm and professional, "I'm giving you 1 week. 7 days. The full amount needs to be in my daughter's bank account. If not, then this bank statement, along with witness reports from yesterday's incident, and charges of large-scale fraud, they'll all be handed to the prosecutor. And believe me, I have friends there. Friends who don't take it lightly. When the daughter of a fellow officer is hurt." He turned around. "Kira, let's go." We walked toward the door. I was already in the hallway when I heard Stanislav's quiet voice behind me. "Kira, I'm sorry. I didn't turn around. I didn't know what to say." Was he truly sorry? Or just afraid of what might happen next? I simply walked out. My father closed the door behind us. It felt like the end. The money would be returned. Justice had won. But we didn't know yet. Inga Borisovna wasn't finished. And the final hit she had planned wasn't about money. It was meant to destroy me. Back at the hotel, my father looked satisfied. He believed everything had gone according to plan, that the situation was handled. But I felt empty. Even this victory gave me no peace. While my father made work calls, I sat near the window, watching the city lights and moving traffic. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, but answered anyway. "Kira," came the soft, cold voice of Inga Borisovna. I almost hung up, but something in her tone made me freeze. There was no anger this time, just a strange, chilling calmness. "Don't hang up, my daughter," she said sweetly. "I'm not calling to fight. I'm just calling to give you advice. Take back your complaint. Forget about the money, or you'll regret it." "Are you threatening me?" I asked coldly. She laughed softly. "Oh no, not a threat. Just a friendly warning." Then her voice dropped lower. "You see, your beloved Colonel Daddy, he doesn't know everything. There's a little secret, a secret about your birth. Do you want to know why your mommy really left? And who your real father is? Believe me, when that truth comes out, your noble colonel will be the first to walk away from you." Her words hit me like poison. A slow, cold fear started to spread through me, like poison in my veins. The secret of my birth. That topic had always been off limits in our family. My father never talked about my mother. He only said she was gone. I always thought she had died, or maybe she just couldn't handle being married to a military man. I never asked. I was too afraid it would hurt him. And now this woman, the same woman who had already ruined my life, was claiming she knew the truth. And this truth, she said, could destroy the one thing I had left. My father's love and respect. What are you saying?" I whispered with dry lips. She laughed softly on the other end of the line. That same cold, smug laugh. "You'll find out," she said, "if you don't do what I say. The week is up, Karachka. Either we keep the money, and I keep my mouth shut, or you get your revenge, and lose everything else." Then she hung up. I sat there, still holding the phone in my freezing hand. My heart pounded. My thoughts were spinning.
She was blackmailing me.
And the choice she gave me felt worse than anything I'd ever faced. What was the secret she was hiding? And was it really so awful that my father, my protector, my hero, would stop loving me? I looked at him. He was still talking on the phone, calm and strong as always. And suddenly, I felt terrified. The rest of the day passed in a fog. I kept trying to tell myself it was just a trick. Just one last, desperate lie from Inga Borisovna.
To keep the money.
But the doubt had already crept in. What if it's true? What if everything I believed about my life is a lie? That evening, my father noticed something was wrong. "What's going on, daughter?" he asked. "You're quiet again. I told you we settled this. It's over." But I couldn't tell him. How could I say that the same woman he'd stood up to was now blackmailing me? That she was threatening to open an old wound he might not even want to face? It felt like betraying him. "No, Dad. I lied. I'm just tired." That night, I didn't sleep at all. Inga's words kept echoing in my head. "Who is your real father?" That question haunted me. Could it be true? Could the man I had called my father all my life not really be my father? Had all his strict love, all his protection, been a lie?
No.
I couldn't believe that. But still, why had he never talked about my mom? Why wasn't there even one photo of her in her house? The next morning, I made a decision. I couldn't live with this kind of doubt. And I wouldn't let that woman control me. I went online and found the address of the law firm where Stanislav worked. I didn't call. I needed to go there in person, that I decided to go there myself. I didn't know exactly what I would say or do, but I knew one thing. I had to look him in the eyes. I needed to know if his mother was lying. Maybe if he felt guilty enough, he'd slip up and tell the truth. When I walked into the fancy office where he worked, the receptionist looked surprised to see me. "Stanislav Igorevich isn't in today," she said politely. "He's taken unpaid leave for an unknown amount of time." I didn't expect that. He'd run away. He was hiding. But I wasn't going to stop now. "Do you know where I can find Inga Borisovna?" I asked, even though my heart was pounding. The receptionist just shrugged and gave me their home address. The same apartment I had walked out of yesterday. So I went there, alone, without my father. This was something I had to face by myself. What I didn't know was, when I opened that door again, I would walk straight into a dark truth, one far worse than I ever imagined. I stood in front of the familiar door. No one was with me this time. No father. No guards. Just me, a racing heartbeat, and a strong need to know the truth. I rang the bell. Silence. I rang again more firmly. I heard slow, shuffling footsteps behind the door. Then it opened just a crack, and I saw Inga Borisovna's scared eye peeking through. The moment she saw me, she tried to slam the door shut, but I blocked it with my foot. "We need to talk," I said as firmly as I could. "Get out," she snapped. "I don't want to see you." "You left me no choice," I replied, pushing harder against the door. "If you don't let me in, I'll call your neighbors, I'll call the police. I'll tell everyone how you and your son threw me out and tried to steal my money. Do you really want that kind of scandal?" She hesitated. My bluff worked. Her reputation still mattered to her. She growled under her breath, then stepped aside and let me in. The apartment was a mess. Clothes scattered, dirty dishes on the table. It looked like a storm had hit the place. Inga Borisovna looked nothing like her usual self. She wore a worn-out bathrobe. Her hair was wild. Her face puffy, like she'd been crying for days. There was no trace of her old pride or sharp tone. She looked tired.
Defeated.
"What do you want now?" she muttered, sinking into the sofa. "Your father has already ruined us."
Stasik left.
"He went to stay with friends. He doesn't want to talk to me. You broke our family." "No," I said calmly, sitting across from her. "You broke it with your lies and your greed. But that's not why I'm here. I want to know what you meant about the secret of my birth." She gave a nervous laugh. "Oh, so that got to you?" She looked at me with a strange smirk. You thought I was bluffing? Just playing games? No, sweetie. I wasn't joking. She leaned back on the sofa, and something cold and dangerous sparkled in her eyes. She realized she still had a trump card in her hand. Okay, she said. I'll tell you, but only if you agree to one thing. She looked me right in the eyes. You give up the money completely. If you don't, I'll tell your precious daddy everything. And trust me, he won't like it. I stared at her and knew. She wasn't bluffing. She was ready to destroy everyone, just to keep the money she already believed was hers. Once again, I had to choose. Money or the truth. But this time I knew. I couldn't live without the truth. All right, I said. Each word felt heavy in my mouth. I give up the money. Just tell me. She smiled like she'd won a battle. At least that's what she thought. She leaned in, lowered her voice, and began whispering like we were sharing some dirty secret. Your father, Pavel Ignatyevich, he's not your real father. Your mother, Veronica, was my best friend. We grew up in the same neighborhood. She was beautiful. I was just the plain girl next to her. All the boys liked her. Even your Pavel. Back then, he was a young, handsome lieutenant. He was completely in love with her. But she didn't love him. She loved someone else. Inga Borisovna paused for effect, enjoying the moment. I held my breath, afraid I'd miss something. His name was Grigory, she continued.
An artist.
Poor as dirt, but charming and full of talent. Veronica fell hard for him. They dated in secret. And then she got pregnant with you. My chest tightened. Everything I thought I knew began to shake apart. Grigory got scared, she said. He wasn't ready for a family. He packed up his paints and brushes and ran off to who knows where. Veronica was left alone, pregnant, ashamed, scared. Then Pavel came back. He still loved her. He offered to marry her, said he'd raise the baby like his own. He saved her reputation, gave you his name, gave you everything. But she couldn't live with it. She couldn't bear to look at the man she'd lied to every day. She couldn't love him. When you were 3 years old, she just left, walked out the door, left you with him, and never came back. Inga leaned back on the sofa, watching me like she'd just dropped a bomb. I sat there, frozen. Each word hit me like a punch to the chest. So, the man I called my father, my hero, he had raised a child that wasn't even his. He knew the truth. He still chose to love me. That wasn't just a father's love. That was real, deep, selfless love. And my mother? She didn't die. She ran away. She didn't die. She just ran away because she was weak. She left me. She left him. Tears rolled down my cheeks. But they weren't because I felt sorry for myself. They were tears of deep gratitude and respect for the man I had always called my father, and at the same time, bitter tears for my mother, who I had once imagined as someone loving and strong. But now I saw who she really was. How do you know all of this? I whispered. Inga Borisovna gave me a cold smile. Veronica told me everything before she left, she said. We were best friends. She gave me a letter to give to Pavel, but I never gave it to him. Why? I asked. So, he wouldn't know the truth. That she never loved him, Inga replied. I burned the letter. I told him she ran off with another man, and said not to look for her. I did him a favor. I was sparing him more pain. Then she looked at me sharply. Now, keep your part of the deal. Call your daddy and tell him. You don't want the money anymore. I looked at her. My eyes were dry now. There was no fear, no sadness. Only a cold, quiet strength. No, I said. My voice was soft, but firm. Inga Borisovna froze. What do you mean, no? We had an agreement. No, I repeated, standing up. We didn't agree on anything. You just told me your version of the story. A twisted, bitter story you've used to hurt people for years. Maybe you even used it to blackmail my mother too. I took a step closer to her. But you made one big mistake, I said. You thought this truth would break me. But it didn't. It made me love my father even more. Now I know how strong, how kind, and how honorable he really is. And I won't let you get away with this anymore. You little snake, she screamed, jumping to her feet. I'll call him right now. I'll tell him everything. Go ahead, I said calmly, walking toward the door. Just remember, my father is a colonel. He doesn't take kindly to lies. And he definitely doesn't like anyone messing with his family. He also won't stay quiet if someone tries to drag the name of the woman he loved through the mud. That conversation will be very interesting. I walked out and slammed the door behind me. My legs were shaky, but I held my head high. I didn't know what was going to happen next, whether she'd call him or whether he'd believe her. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was my father's daughter, and I would fight for him,
just like he had always fought for me.
When I got back to the hotel, he was in the room packing. His short work trip was almost over. Is everything okay? He asked, looking up at me. You look pale. I took a deep breath. Dad, we need to talk. We sat down together. I looked at his face, so familiar, so kind, at the little wrinkles near his eyes, at the gray in his hair, and my heart swelled with love. Then I told him everything, about Inga Borisovna's threats, her blackmail, my visit to her apartment, and the story she told me. That I told him everything. He listened quietly. His face grew more serious with every word I said. When I finished, he didn't say anything for a long time. He just stared at one spot on the wall. I held my breath. She told the truth, he finally said. His voice was low and rough. He looked up at me, and I saw so much pain in his eyes that all I wanted was to hug him and protect him from the whole world. So it's true, I whispered. You're not my real father? He nodded slowly.
Yes.
Your mother, Veronica, really did love someone else, an artist named Grigory. And yes, he left her when he found out she was pregnant.
He paused.
His voice grew stronger. But everything else Inga said is a lie. There was no betrayal. Veronica didn't run away. She didn't leave you. She loved you more than anything. She came to me not to hide things, but because she trusted me. I loved her, Kira, more than I ever loved anyone. And when she told me about the baby, I told her I would marry her and raise the child as my own. I wanted to give both of you a family, a home, safety. He stood up and walked over to his suitcase. He pulled out an old, worn-out wallet, reached into a hidden pocket, and took out a small, faded photo. It was of a young, beautiful woman, with kind eyes and a warm smile. She was holding a little girl, me, and laughing. That's your mother, he said softly. And you. He stared at the photo for a moment. Then his voice turned bitter. Then Inga got involved again. Yes, she and Veronica were friends, but it was a poisonous kind of friendship. She was jealous of her beauty, her talent, how everyone loved her. She kept telling Veronica that I was unhappy, that I couldn't really love a child that wasn't mine. She wanted to break us apart. And then Veronica got sick. I looked at him in shock. She had a serious heart condition, he said. The doctors said she needed surgery abroad fast. But it was expensive and we didn't have the money. I was ready to sell everything, take on any debt. I even asked my commanders for help. He went quiet again, holding the photo like it was made of glass. And then Inga came with good news. She said she found Grigory, that he was rich now, a famous artist in Europe. She said he offered to pay for the surgery, but only on one condition. Veronica had to leave with him and never come back to us. I sat frozen, heart pounding. Inga wasn't just cruel. She was a monster. And what did Mom say? I asked. She refused, he said firmly. She chose us. My father's voice was shaking. She said she would never leave us, he whispered. But Inga kept pressuring her. She told Veronica she was being selfish, that she would die and leave me alone with a child. She said I didn't want that kind of life, that I would be happy to be free of the burden. He swallowed hard. She convinced Veronica that leaving was the only way to save both herself and me. Veronica wrote me a goodbye letter. She explained everything in it. She gave it to Inga to give to me. He paused, his fists clenched. But Inga burned it. And she told me Veronica had run off with another man, that she had never loved me. I believed her, he said, barely louder than a whisper. I was crushed, broken. I hated her for betraying me. And all these years, I raised you with that hate sitting in my heart. I tried to forget the woman I thought had stomped on my love. He stopped. The room was completely quiet, except for the soft ticking of the clock. The truth was so much worse than I had imagined. It wasn't just sad, it was heartbreaking. A twisted lie had destroyed lives. And it all started with one jealous, cruel woman. What would happen to Mom? I asked softly. I don't know, he said, shaking his head. After a while, I tried to find her. But Inga told me she'd gone abroad, cut off all contact. I had no idea where to start. Eventually, I gave up. I thought maybe it was best for everyone. Suddenly, his phone rang. He looked at the screen, frowned, and answered it on speaker. Pavel Ignatyevich, came Victor's voice. His assistant, he sounded breathless and excited. I did some checking like you asked, about Inga Borisovna, and I found something strange. She's been making monthly payments to a private care home just outside the city, always in the same name, Veronica Makarova. The name dropped into the air like thunder. Veronica Makarova. My mother. She wasn't abroad. She wasn't living with some rich artist. She was still here, in a care home for the sick. All this time, my father froze. His hand holding the phone went stiff. The pain, the anger, everything that had been on his face, suddenly disappeared. And what came next was something I had never seen before. Confusion. Colonel Pavel Ignatyevich, a man who always had a plan, who was always in control, looked completely lost. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded strange, almost distant. Victor, give me the address. Now, Dad said firmly. Victor gave him the address over the phone, and without saying another word, my father rushed out of the room. I grabbed my bag and ran after him. We ran through the hotel hallway, down the stairs, didn't even wait for the elevator, and burst out onto the street. A car was already waiting. Victor was behind the wheel. He didn't need any explanations. He just drove. The ride to the suburbs took about an hour, but to me, it felt like forever. No one spoke. The silence was heavy. My father stared out the window the whole time. His lips were pressed into a tight line. His jaw was tense. I could see the storm inside him. Everything he believed in was falling apart. The hate he'd carried all those years, for the woman he thought had betrayed him, was based on a lie. He had hated the wrong person. And the real enemy? She had been near him all along, pretending to be a friend. I gently placed my hand on his. He flinched a little, then turned to look at me. His eyes were filled with deep pain and confusion. He held my hand tightly in return. That simple squeeze said everything. I'm sorry for you growing up without a mom. For the years we lost. For everything. The care home turned out to be a quiet, cozy building behind a tall fence, surrounded by trees. Too peaceful a place for the kind of truth it was hiding. An older nurse greeted us at the door. My father showed her his ID and said clearly, without wasting words, "We need to see Veronica Makarova.
Now."
The nurse blinked in surprise, a bit nervous, but she didn't argue. She led us down a clean, quiet hallway that smelled like disinfectant. She's been here a long time, the nurse whispered. She's very quiet. Keeps to herself. Hardly talks. No one ever visits her, except one woman who comes once a month to pay. Says she's a distant relative. She stopped at a door marked with the number 7. She's inside. My father froze. He stood there like a soldier facing his final battle. I saw him struggling. Then he took a deep breath, straightened his back, and opened the door. The room was small, but full of light. A thin woman sat in a rocking chair by the window. Her gray hair was tied back simply, and she stared out at the autumn trees outside. She didn't hear us come in. My father stepped forward, his voice hoarse with emotion. Veronica. The woman slowly turned her head. Her eyes, once full of light and joy like in that old photo, were now tired and dull. But you could still see it was her, Veronica. She looked at my father with no surprise, like she had been waiting for him all this time. Like she had sat in that chair for 30 years just waiting for the door to open and for him to walk in. Pasha, she whispered. Her voice was dry and soft, like leaves blowing in the wind. You came. My father dropped to his knees in front of her. He gently held her thin, almost see-through hand and pressed it to his cheek. He didn't say a word, but his shoulders shook from silent sobs. Everything he had bottled up for 3 decades, his pain, his anger, his love, came pouring out. I stood at the door crying. My mom, my dad, together again after a whole life stolen from them by someone else's jealousy. Once the emotion settled, my mom told us her side of the story. She confirmed everything Dad had said. Inga had lied to her, told her Grigory was waiting for her and would pay for her operation. She gave her an address in another country. But when Mom got there, no one was waiting. Grigory wasn't there. He had never been there. She was alone, sick, and had no documents or money. For years, she survived doing small jobs, until the illness got worse and she couldn't work anymore. Somehow, she managed to get back home. She wanted to find us, but she was scared. Inga, the only person who knew where she was, sent her letters. In them, she told Mom that Pavel had remarried, that he had a new family, and that she shouldn't ruin his happiness. Mom believed her, and when she got too sick to care for herself, Inga offered to help. She placed her in this care home, paying the smallest amount just to keep her alive. She kept Mom locked away here like a prisoner, isolated from the world. She enjoyed having power over her, and kept lying to both of them, Mom and Dad, for all those years. The story was so cruel, it barely seemed real. This wasn't just lying, it was carefully planned emotional abuse. A slow, heartless destruction of someone's life. Dad listened, and his face grew hard. When Mom finished speaking, he stood up and said quietly, "I'll be back." He kissed her hand and walked out. I stayed with my mom. We sat in silence, just holding hands. We were strangers, but somehow we were also the closest people in the world. We had to start over. We had lost 30 years, but I believed we still had time ahead to rebuild. An hour later, Dad came back. He was calm, too calm. "I've taken care of it," he said. "Veronica's being moved to the best clinic. She'll get the best care. The doctors are already waiting." Then he looked at me. "Now," he said, "we have one more stop to make." We drove again, this time back to Inga Borisovna's apartment. But Dad didn't ring the bell this time. He simply opened the door. With a key he had clearly taken from Stanislav, Inga Borisovna was in the living room. Stanislav, who had come back, was sitting beside her, hunched over. They seemed to be discussing something, but both went quiet when we walked in. Inga looked up at us with a bitter, smug grin. "Oh, so you came," she said sarcastically. "Well, Colonel, did your daughter tell you the truth? About her so-called illegitimate child? About the cheating wife? Did you believe all of it?" My father walked up to her, calm and quiet.
He didn't yell.
He didn't threaten. He just looked at her. And in his eyes, there was so much cold disappointment that Inga actually flinched. Her grin faded. "I know everything, Inga," he said quietly. "I know about the care home. I know about your lies. I know what you did to Veronica, to me, and to my daughter." At the word care home, Inga went pale. She realized it was over. Her biggest secret, the thing she used to control everyone, was no longer hers. Her hostage, my mother, was free. "She's lying," she mumbled, panicking. But the room was silent. Nobody believed her anymore. Stanislav looked at both his parents, horror growing on his face. He had probably guessed some of it, but now the full truth had hit him like a rock. Whatever love he still had for his mother shattered in that moment. "Mom, is it true?" he whispered. Inga didn't answer. She just curled up on the couch like a wounded animal. Her world had collapsed. She lost everything: money, her name, her son. My father turned to Stanislav. As for the money, he said, the 2 million will be transferred to Veronika Makarova's account within 24 hours. That money will pay for her treatment. If it doesn't happen, I'll hand over all the evidence, your mother's lies, the financial documents, and the witness statements, to the police. And then this won't just be about fraud. It will be about unlawful imprisonment and endangering a life. Think carefully, son. Think about your career and your mother's future. And with that, we walked out, leaving them behind with the mess they had made. I knew they would return the money, but honestly, that didn't even matter anymore. We had gotten back something far more valuable. A few days later, my mother was moved to the best military clinic. She had surgery, and it went well. She had a long recovery ahead, but the doctors were hopeful. My father never left her side. He even retired so he could be with her full time. I watched them, gray-haired, worn out by life, but still standing. And between them, I saw something being rebuilt.
Love.
Real, strong, forgiving love. They were learning to talk again, to trust again. And it was beautiful. Stanislav filed for divorce and transferred all the money. He even sent more than what was owed. In a short message, he said he was moving to another city and cutting ties with his mother. As for Inga Borisovna, I don't know what happened to her. And I don't want to know. She no longer exists in my life. A year passed. One warm afternoon, we were all sitting together on the porch of a quiet country house my father had bought. Mom was still a bit weak, but she had color in her cheeks again, and a smile as she poured us tea. My father looked at her with so much love, it made my heart ache. Justice didn't come through revenge. It came through truth, through love, through healing. My family, which I once thought was broken forever, had come back from the ashes. Stronger, brighter, closer than ever. I didn't just get my mother back. I discovered the kind of father I had. A man of depth, honor, and incredible heart. And I understood something important. Life throws its worst storms at us, so we can learn to truly appreciate the sunshine. Thank you for listening to this difficult story all the way to the end. If it touched you, please leave a like, write in the comments what you think about the choices the characters made, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories. Your support means the world to us. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.